when you start remembering who God created you to be, it usually is somewhere in your childhood where you had no fear and no limits. And then the world started saying, oh, you can't do that. You don't do that. No, that's not something you can do. You're not very good at this. Just like when I was told, you should never be an author. Well, do you think the enemy knew that not only would I write a book that would do well, but that book would open a door for me helping, what's going to end up being thousands of people write their message that would basically give a knockout blow to the enemy? I think he was a little afraid.
Welcome back to Witness the Wonder, and I'm your host, Christina Smith. In this episode, we're going to pick up where we left off in part 1 as Missy shares what has unfolded since Don't Mess With This Mama released, including the book's move to pre-production, the birth of Warrior Writers, and her growing impact as a writing coach, speaker, and now a publisher. So Missy, welcome back.
Good to be back, Chris. Thank you.
When you finished Don't Mess With This Mama, did you think that was the end of the story, or did you already have a sense that God had some more involved for you in the future with that?
Well, I thought one of the things that would happen, we knew the production companies were very interested in it for a movie. So we knew that that was coming. I thought that would happen next, but it wasn't what happened right away. Movies take a long time. So people started approaching me. After I'd written a book, I started winning awards. I would post it and just say, look what happened. Look what God did. I'm so amazed that God would do this. And people would contact me and say, I feel like I have a book inside of me. Can we talk? Can you give me some advice? We'd meet over coffee. And I clearly saw that they needed a lot more accountability. They needed a lot more help to write a book. And so Warrior Writers was born.
So Warrior Writers, for those of you who don't know, that is our writing group. It's how I met Missy myself. She's my writing coach, and it's a community of writers who are writing their true stories for Kingdom Impact. And did you ever imagine that it would grow into what it's grown into today?
No, that was Jehovah Sneaky all the way. I thought, I love to help women step into their identity, but I knew that God had something different for me. I just didn't know what it was. And it was helping women step into their identity through their story, because it is a journey of remembering who you are. And so that is something that I really recognize. Okay, when we start writing our story, suddenly when we do it with the help of the Father, and we see things differently than how they happen. We have this storyline that we're like, this happened. But when you slow down enough to go, wait a minute, what did happen there? Suddenly you see a different story, and you see where God was in the details. You see where other people may have helped a little bit, helped you when you didn't see it. You start seeing where God was, that God was in your story the whole time. No matter how traumatic it was, he was there to pull you out of it and to redeem those hard spots, those hard places.
Yeah, I can attest to that because personally, your coaching program and the Warrior Writers has played a huge role in helping me find my own message and working through my own healing from my story. We all have a story. We like to use the story, but it is our life. It's the life that we've lived, the experiences that we've had. But in my story, there was a lot of trauma, and working through that has been life-changing, honestly. The Warrior Writers have just changed everything. In fact, it's actually where the vision for Witness the Wonder first began. I know when we've talked before, you didn't expect to coach women. You didn't expect to coach people on how to write a book. How did you get to where we are today? How did God walk you through that?
That's a good question. Well, I will say this. I went to my knees when I felt that God was asking me to coach, and I was like, no, 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 no. I've done all these things where I've been a coach, and Father, I just want to write books. That's it. I want to write books and I want to write movies. I remember being on my knees and just crying out and just being silent because we could say a lot, but when we get silent and just listen, and I felt, I didn't hear audibly, but I felt him say to me, if you don't step in and help these women release their message, they are not going to step into their callings because it's going to be blocked where I've given you this direction to help people write their story. That's the first step. And that's the first step to stepping into all they've been called by me to do. So that was the one point where I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. So did that first challenge and people came in. I had 10 people up front and I thought those ladies, it would be 90 days and we'd be done. And then they started asking, can we continue somehow? And that's how we created the monthly program. And you came in 6 months into it. I believe I was just 6 months. It was the third challenge that I did and you came in and all of a sudden it just started growing and God started releasing books not in the first year. He released it at 18-month mark because he wanted to show me this is, it takes a while to birth it, but then you have to edit it and perfect it and get it to where it is a piece of art that people when they read it are going, this is a good story. And so that's what happened. I never saw it coming. And then another thing that I didn't see coming is that when people would go in to write their trauma, I would always say, y'all, when you're going in, let us know so we could cover you in prayer. And
Mhm.
so we would cover everybody in prayer. And somebody came in, I brought someone in who did inner healing. And once he did it, his name was Craig Miller, and he worked with us 3 hours. You were there, weren't you there?
Yes. Yeah.
When he worked through all of us doing this, working through it.
Yep.
When somebody, one of my friends stepped forward and she said, I've been doing that at our church. I could do a class maybe. I said, if you can do a class, I said, pray about doing a class once a month, twice a month, just whatever God tells you. And she came back and she started doing it 4 times a month, every Thursday. And we had inner healing, another Jehovah sneaky moment, because women would come and get healed. You've seen it, the transformation that's happened in these women. As I'm going to tell her name's Carolyn. She's come in and she's worked hard to deliver every Thursday these amazing inner healing sessions that all of us get so much from, and we get to release those people in our life that maybe hurt us, and now we see it the way God sees it. And we're like, all right, I'll let that go. And we're unblocked to write. And it's necessary. When you're writing your true story, it's necessary to get unlocked.
I know personally when I came into the Warrior Writers, I came in very broken, very hurt. I had gone through some difficult seasons in my own life. And man, the transformation. I mean, I hopefully you can see it, like the
Yeah.
transformation from when I came in, because I came in with the intention to write one book, and I was I didn't know the book that God was calling me to write. I'm still writing, by the way, that I was in the middle of experiencing. I hadn't even touched the surface at some of the most powerful parts of my story that have come out through my writing. But what is the importance, Missy, of writing from a healed place? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, because healed authors write healed books. They write healed books. And then when readers are reading those books, they're experiencing that healing secondhand, but their eyes are open to, maybe I need to let this go because she did it. And she has a story a lot like mine, and she did this, and now she's seeing it from a healed perspective. Healing is everything because there is such a thing as secondhand trauma, and it happens in books, it happens in movies, and we can read somebody's trauma and actually feel that along with it. So the way I teach to write a trauma is not to tell us all the details lead up to the trauma. Don't give us the details, but what happened afterwards emotionally? How did you deal with emotions? And then when you ask God into your story and you started seeing it, how did you release the pain? How did you release the anger? How did you release it to where you can step into a life that you could keep living and not hold on to that anger or that unforgiveness, because you know what? I released that. I let it go so I could step into something greater that God has for me. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, that you looked at it like it was nothing. It means I see it. I see how it tried to take me down, but I'm not going to be a victim with what this person did. I am going to be victorious over my story and what God wants to do through it now.
Absolutely. My interviews are split into two parts for TV, but on Patreon, you get the full uncut story before anyone else. Real stories, bonus content, early access. Visit patreon.com/witness the wonder to become a member today. We would love to have you part of the community. If someone's listening today and they feel called to write, but they're not sure where to start, what would you say to them?
Well, you know what? There's very few people that know where to start. I would say join one of our challenges, one of the workshops I do. Go to my website, it's myname.com, but go to the website and sign up for the next one that's coming. I've made a commitment to try to do one a month. But I just lay out the foundations. And if you know God has put something within you, that you have a story, you're the expert on your story, because somebody might have had a story like yours. They might be saying almost the same thing, but you viewed it differently. And it comes from your frequency. The way you lived it, the way you see it is a different way than anybody else out there. You're one of a kind. So it's important to get that out, because somebody, they're waiting for the answer. They're looking for the answer. Most likely it's going to be in your storyline. So I would say learn how to write a good story. You could be part of the Warrior Writers, or you can just glean from what I teach in the workshop. It's free. So, and you can move forward from there at least, and just get your feet well. You'll fall in love with it.
Recently, I was reading about the power of storytelling and how it rewires the neural pathways in our brain. I was just blown away by how how story transforms neuroscience is now confirming what the Bible says, that faith does come by hearing. When we tell our stories, there is power in storytelling because it rewires those neural pathways in our brain to believe God, that if he did it for you when you went to Ethiopia to get your daughter, you know, that he could do that for me in my situation. And so I think, how do you write? Do you have any suggestions in writing a story that is compelling in that way?
Yeah, with every story, you're going to have a red thread message, and you've got to decide where the most impact has happened in your life that brought transformation. For me, with my story, the thing that brought the most impact was my faith in trusting God. But I also had this underlying thread as well. In every situation that was brought to me that should have brought fear, I transposed it into love. And so it's how to choose love over fear, how to choose faith over fear. I mean, and so that's the underlying. So, what is your underlying message? And then always start with a powerful hook, something that within your story you can start that says, read this because you've got to find out what happened at the end. And then there's always going to be that crisis moment, that where you've lost all hope. And what came into your life? Was it a message? Was it a friend that called you and last minute said, I don't know why I need to call you, but I just want to let you know how much you are loved and how much I love you? Was it that? Was it turning on the radio as you're driving down? You've decided, I'm just going to careen this vehicle into a tree or whatever. And suddenly a message came of hope that turned your crisis moment around. You always need a crisis moment, but then your book should always end. And I've seen books that didn't end this way, and people put it down and go, why did I just waste 3 days reading this? But always end it with a positive note. Ask yourself, what do I want my reader to do when they finish this book and they place my book down? How are they going to rise up different? Because I wrote a healed book that gave them hope in their tomorrow. So ask yourself those. And here's the biggest one. When you sit down to write, remember you're not writing to a million people. You are writing to one person. One. So write to the audience of one. Act like anytime I sit down to write, I always act like my best friend walked in and sat in I have a little leather chair on the other side. And I act like they sat there and I'm just telling every detail. Why your best friend? Because you trust them. You're going to be authentic. You're not going to try to cover anything up. They already know you. And you're going to be vulnerable. And we need authenticity because it's one of the highest frequencies that you can write in. We need vulnerability because people can see through a story that is leaving out something. You can see through it. They know something's not right because this doesn't make sense how you responded here. So be vulnerable and, of course, be truthful. And that's going to make one of the best stories, especially in true story form. So that's what I would say. Those are some of the top things I look at.
Absolutely. It is a struggle when you're writing your story. It's a process. You said don't leave any parts out. Personally, I've struggled with that part in my own story. I wrestle back and forth with God. This part's not essential. He'll give me some time and he'll show me. Yeah, it is essential because if that part didn't happen, you wouldn't be who you are today. So every piece of our story is building something within us. And again, those stories help give others hope and inspire them to keep going. And their breakthrough could be just on the other side, just like the breakthrough that we got in our stories. One of the things I love most about the Warrior Writers is the community. When I was doing this research on neuroscience, I was realizing when we get together, for those of you, we're not local. Missy's in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm in Columbus, Ohio. So we're not local. These are women from all over the United States and Canada. I don't think we have anybody out international otherwise yet. And so we're all over the place and we get together 3 times a week, 2 days a week, but 3 different Zoom calls a week. And we share our stories. So we read and we give feedback. And so when I read about neuroscience, it says that oxytocin is released when we are sharing our stories. And oxytocin is the bonding hormone or chemical that a mother produces when she's holding a child. And so it's a bonding. And so when I read that, I was like, it makes perfect sense, Missy. We get together and we share our stories multiple times a week. So no wonder we have such a bonded group coming from different walks of life, different states, like different countries. I mean, you want to speak to that? Like, was that a surprise for you too?
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, I wanted to hear what people were writing so I could give input into how to work that in better story wise because I'm all about story. And what happened is we all started hearing these women's stories of what they went through in childhood, but we know them now and we see where God was in it and how God transformed them. And it just gives us more faith. We feel our faith building. We see them differently. So I think because each one of us look at each other and we're like, you look like you're perfect. Do you have anything that went? We hear their stories and suddenly we're like, wow, you've been through that. And it encourages us to overcome the hardest things. And it is one of the most beautiful things I have seen with the group. There's so many women I love. I mean, all of y'all. It's just like, wow, your story is amazing. And the amazing thing, some of them come to us and say, I don't really have a story. I just feel like I'm supposed to write a book. Sometimes that is the most transformational story that we have read of somebody looking differently at themselves than the world has tried to beat them down with, whether it's family, whether it's a job. They've been beat down to not see their value. And suddenly, in writing the book, they see where God gave them great value. They start remembering who they are and they start igniting to know that they were called here, they were sent to be here for this time in history, and they are living the more in their life. They know more. They know their life was meant for more. And you're probably watching this going, I feel that way. My life was meant for more. And it's when you start remembering who God created you to be, and it usually is somewhere in your childhood where you had no fear and you no limits, and then the world starts saying, oh, you can't do that, you don't do that, no, that's not something you can do, you're not very good at this. Just like when I was told you should never be an author. Well, do you think the enemy knew that not only would I write a book that would do well, but that book would open a door for me helping, what's going to end up being thousands of people write their message that would basically give a knockout blow to the enemy in their life? I think he was a little afraid. And so, what has been said to you by someone of authority, it's always comes through somebody who has authority, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a parent, whether it's a pastor, what has been said to you in authority that put your dream down and said you couldn't? Because God never says, oh, you can't do that. God put that within your DNA so that you would fulfill it. And so I'll get off my preaching box, but I'm just saying, all of us had that moment where somebody said we couldn't, and but we can. If God called
Right.
us to
Or
it.
how many times do we tell ourselves that? Well, last year you had a lot of really great things happen. I remember we were at NRB in 2024, and you came back to the Airbnb because there's, imagine that, 15 women staying together because we have a conference we go to every year where we go to promote our books, and we get interviewed and we talk about all that our book is about. It'd been a long day at NRB, and we came back to the the Airbnb, and you shared with us some news that your book had been optioned for a movie. And so your book's in pre-production. How does it feel to get to that point for your book to make it to being made into a movie?
It's exciting because you recognize that the story that you walk through, how the book has blessed people, but a movie, so many more people see the movie and they see it worked out and they get to see the glory of God in it. And there are angels in my story, massive angels that they're going to have to put in there because that's the only way I would have signed an agreement, is to have these massive angels that came to fight on our behalf. And it feels unreal. But at the same time, I am so excited for people to see this and to start choosing to have faith, to start choosing love over fear. And I'm hoping that what people will see is that, wait a minute, they went through this and they held on to hope. They held on to love in the situation. And that's what I'm really praying, that the audiences will stand up differently because they saw our movie, just the way they're standing up differently after they read our book.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. That's quite an accomplishment. Not every book makes it to movie form. And I personally can't wait to watch it. I think it's going to be pretty cool. It would be awesome if all the Warrior writers could get together and have a screening together. That would be so much fun when it comes
We
out.
need, of course, I'll be inviting all of you all to be at the red carpet. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's fun. We do have an actress who has said she absolutely wants to do it. And
Oh, that's
she and I are actually, we're little friends, not close, like she doesn't come over to my house every day,
exciting.
but she and I are the same height. And the funniest thing is that my kids used to see her on Disney and say, oh my gosh, mom, she is exactly like you. And I'm like, funny. But so it's funny that now we're coming to this moment that she may be most likely the person who plays me. So I'm excited
That's
about,
pretty cool.
you know,
That's
yeah,
awesome. Congratulations.
thank
So
you.
last year was not, that's a big thing last year, but that wasn't the only big thing that happened last year. Last year you launched Light Warrior Publishing. What
Mhm.
inspired you? Like you don't already have a lot on your plate as is. What inspired you to take that leap into publishing?
Well, let me just say this. When God asks you to do something, your yes is such a big thing because your yes is saying, all right, I trust you in this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know you'll bring the right people. So we kept helping people write these amazing books. And they would go out and they would get edited and then published. And I would find out how much these individuals would have to pay for all that. And I just thought, we need a more affordable way. So I talked to several people, several editors, several formatters, several people that knew how to upload. And I said, what would you charge for this? You're very good at it. So would you work something with me if I put together a publishing company? And they were on board immediately. And so Light Warrior Publishing was birthed, and you'll love this. It was birthed on December 1st at 11:11 p.m. was the first book that posted. And it was our first resilience book. And I'm like, what time did it post? And it's like 11:11 it went live. You were officially a publishing company with the first anthology of warrior writers, what we did together. And it couldn't have been more appropriate to be that book. It was all of us, not just one. And I love that. And so since then, we've published 4 books. We've published. We just uploaded 2 last week that both are number 1 in their category, several categories. God loves butts. Butts as in Buts. But God. She's a character. She's so funny. She's like Nora Ephraim. And so funny, just a funny view of how she sees God, but a right view. But one of the things is we're starting to see these books come out doing really well and in an affordable way. And so it just fills my heart. We have 9 books on the docket that they're right now in edit or in formatting. So we'll have 9 more coming out in the next 3 months, and then more are coming because you all are finishing your books and we're putting them out there. So it's God, you know what? I don't even advertise. That's what's crazy. I don't advertise. I'd be a little nervous if I advertise. But everybody that's come to me has been like, I've talked to 8 different companies and you're the right one. I need to go with your publishing. So we do an excellent job. We're thankful. We work with a powerful group of women that's helping me get these books out. And it's another Jehovah Sneaky. I don't have to edit. I just have to put good people to do it.
Hmm.
I
Well,
don't know.
what else is on the horizon? I think you're starting your own podcast too, aren't you?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was another yes. It's a podcast TV show for none other than Good View. As you know Good
Yeah.
View. And Duke, he's amazing. He loves the Warrior Writers, and he started this channel called Good View. And of course, he wants us on there. And I'm going to be on Good View and helping women. It's going to end up being called Midwife to Destiny, and it's birthing books. So we're helping authors who have always felt like, I want to write a book. I don't know where to start. I'll be having a half hour each week, just giving tips on how to write a book and interviewing authors that have already walked through writing a book and just encouraging you that you can write a book and that God is in your story and your story needs to be released in a powerful and healed way. So that's where we're going next. That should start in about 2 months. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. Can't wait to watch that. You've written across books, television, and film. With so many creative outlets, how do you stay anchored in your voice and your purpose?
Every day starts with a time of silence and just thankfulness for what God has in the day ahead. So I do get up early. I get up between 4 and 4:30 every morning. Sometimes God wakes me up earlier and I'm like, okay, what you need? And so I started out with gratitude, with thankfulness, and then I work out. So I keep my body healthy. I eat healthy. And then I go into reading his word and studying his word. And I am a wordsmith. I love to learn Hebrew. I got into it about 10 years ago. Ancient Hebrew, Paleo, and also Aramaic. And just learning those helped me understand the word of God and how clearly that God speaks through us through the word. It is individualized for us based on our relationship. And when I started going deeper in learning that, I was able to expound on it. When I started learning about frequencies, when I started learning about quantum physics, all these things, has God all over it. New Age don't have nothing on what God did. They just acting like they do, but he is the author and creator of all these things. So I love to research, I love to study, but what keeps me grounded is I only give a certain amount of time to my business, to writing. And if I always ask God, is this what you want me doing today? And if he does not want, I will feel a check in my spirit. I will literally say, okay, we're not going to do that. He's never taken me away from a commitment that I've given my commitment. He's always made room for it. So, but start with thankfulness and gratitude and the word of God. The reason I do exercise before I read the word is because my neurons are sparking. My BDNF, the brain derived neurotropic factor, is activated, and I have better recall. I have better memory. I have better retention in what I'm learning. So, um, at afternoon, don't ask me any questions because I'll go.
I love it. I'm getting that
Okay,
way too.
okay, I'll play with my dogs.
I'm like, it's time. I'm the same way. Early morning. I'll wake up 3, 4 o'clock and I get
Yeah,
like a whole day's worth of stuff done before 8 o'clock. Like, it's like, but come afternoon, I'm ready for a nap. I get it. I'm
I'm
like,
done.
yeah,
If I don't watch it, I'll get on and just scroll and not realize that I'm scrolling. And I'll go, whoa, 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 whoa. I need to stop. Let me go play with the dogs. Yeah, I've learned to set the timer to 15 minutes. If I start getting into whatever I'm getting into, I set it for 15 minutes. So I pull myself out. I've learned the hard way. I've scrolled for 3 hours and thought it was 15 minutes.
yeah. Well, this has been so good. If you could go back and speak to yourself in one of the hardest moments of your journey, because you've been through a lot, you've gone through a lot, what would you say knowing what you know now?
Trust, trust God that he has the best story written out for you. And sometimes it's going to look hard. There's the highs and lows. I often tell people the story of learning about the Song of Solomon. I thought it was just a book for married people that you didn't read. But when I learned the ancient Hebrew, just just the phrase Song of Solomon went, it really meant this is your song. Your life is your song. There's going to be highs in your life where you arc to the heavens, but there's got to be lows to bring in the deep tones and create who you were meant to be. Because you go high, but if we stayed high all the time, we wouldn't be the person we are. When you go into the depths, the low notes in your life, that's what creates a beautiful song, and it's an orchestra to heaven's ears. It's an orchestra to the Father, and it's how we handle the low notes that pulls us out into having the high notes of life. And we've got to learn that not every bad thing that happens to us is for our bad. Sometimes the things that we view as, how could God have done this? This is horrible. Most likely, it's taking us to a higher ground to respond and understand where he was in that situation and what can we learn from every situation that we walk through. If it's hard, we can learn from it. If we fail, it's a learning opportunity. And we need to stop looking at the hard times as something that, this is horrible. Rather, what can I learn from this? How can this build my faith? How can this build my love? And how can I not go into fear in this moment? So you're writing an orchestra with your life, and it's beautiful.
Absolutely. So, such good wisdom. I will say this as you were talking that we can't get from one mountaintop to the other without going through a valley. There's no way it's not possible. It's not physically possible. And so every step through that valley is teaching us, as our book title, resilience. It's building resilience inside of us so that we can keep going when the next battle comes. We'll be more resilient and able to bounce back faster and quicker. Missy, if people are interested in writing their book, if they've been inspired to write their own book, how can they get in touch with you to possibly join our Warrior Writers and or your coaching program?
Yeah, so we have the Warrior Writers and we have Light Warrior Publishing, but you can, just like my name is written right here, Missy Maxwell Worton, just put a .com and it'll take you and you can sign up. We can book a call and we can talk about what you feel like you're needing and we can see if we can fit that need, see if you're a good fit and if we can truly help you get that out. And I believe we can. And so I just encourage you to reach out to us. And we are eventually going to bring men in. My husband is stepping in, so you'll have he and I, but we're gonna keep the women together because we're hot messes at 6 a.m. in the morning, and you probably wouldn't appreciate that.
Yeah, no makeup, no hair done. It's morning. It's 6 a.m. in the morning, folks.
Why we're so close to one another because we've all seen each other. We're like, oh,
Right, right.
she looks out without false eyelashes.
Right. Missy, thank you for being a powerful example of what God can do with a surrendered story. Your story has inspired me, but if her story has inspired you, go grab a copy of Don't Mess with This Mama. And if you feel called to write your own story, do what she said. Reach out to her about Warrior Writers and our coaching program. You'll find links in the show notes below so you can get in touch with her. But just like in Missy's story, you may not see the full picture yet, but remember, God is always at work in your story.
Got a story burning in your heart, but you're not sure where to start? Award-winning author Missy Maxwell Worton is hosting a free writing workshop to help you turn your story into a message that impacts lives. You'll learn how to uncover your unique voice, structure your story for maximum impact, and take your next step towards publishing. Don't keep your story locked inside. Sign up today for Missy's free writing workshop at MissyMaxwellWorton.com. Thanks for tuning in to Witness the Wonder. If today's story encouraged you, share it with a friend. And stay connected at WitnessTheWonderPodcast.com. You can also follow us at Witness the Wonder on your favorite social media platform for updates and behind-the-scenes moments. Let's witness the wonder together. Remember, God is always at work in your story.